Hey everyone's Ryan here. It's currently 5:30 in the morning. I was gonna do this earlier, but with trying to get back into a work schedule, I have to stay up past 5 a.m. And um, with basically how it's a really annoying thing about my internet currently, where whenever I upload a video to YouTube, it messes up the internet on everything else apart from my phone. Well, apart from YouTube uploading the video, but I can't do anything else on my phone connected to the internet. So I thought I'd do it now before I actually go to bed. This is my reactions to WWE Clash of Champions 2020. I forgot to do the predictions video because I was going to do it on Saturday. Completely forgot about it because I thought there'd be some last minute change. I was going to do it yesterday, but I've literally been out all day. Like I've been away for like an hour or so. And then basically went to a friend's house, watched football with them. But basically, because I live by myself, it's fine with the whole COVID law thing, because it's like you can have like one household, and like if you're by yourself, then it's fine. But if you share like a place with someone, then it's a bit stricter. Anyway, yeah, and then by the time I got back, I was in a group call with my wrestling friends. So we basically, from about 9:30, we literally did a wrestling quiz, and then we started chatting about basically all sorts of wrestling stuff, and then we watched Clash of Champions. Basically finished at about 3 o'clock, if I remember correctly. I think everyone went out for about 3:15. I've basically stayed up for a couple of hours since. I was thinking I was going to record it after, like basically after the call was done, I was going to record it and do it that way. But then it was sort of like, but I realised it's like for work, I have to stay up past 5 a.m. because I finish work at 5 a.m. normally. Like I normally work 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. So therefore, I need to be up later. So basically, I need to get my sleep schedule back on track. So I thought I'd do it after 5 o'clock. That way, I'm still up for a bit, and then I can upload it and go to sleep. Because that way I'm not sat around waiting for it to come back on. But anyway, on with the show. I think a couple of hours before the show started, I think it was shortly before the pre-show, they announced that Shayna Baszler, Nikki Cross, and Nia Jax all weren't going to be competing. They never said why, but chances are that it's COVID. The women's tag titles, there'll be an announcement on Raw tomorrow. As for Nikki Cross, she's supposed to be failing Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship, but basically Bayley will have a different opponent instead. They've also moved Asuka and Zelina Vega to the main show, and they've put Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura versus the Lucha House Party on the pre-show, which I think is fine. Like, I think literally the SmackDown tag titles was one I was sort of like the least invested in. And I'm not going to do the AEW comment where it's like when they had fucking, what's the name, Big Swole and Britt Baker on the pre-show, people complained. So they put it on the main show, and then they still complained because it was crap. But yeah, I think it was a good move to put them on the main show. Kind of, I guess, plays into what happens later on. But Cesaro and Shinsuke versus Lucha House Party. The story going into it is that Kalisto and Lindsay are sort of fighting over who's the leader of Lucha House Party. Turns out they're the actual tag partners for the match, with Grand Metalik on the outside. And I'm thinking at this point, it's like a majority of the match is Lindsay just getting beat up all the time. And I was thinking Lindsay was going to be the one to basically take the loss, and then Kalisto can use that against him. I think it ended up being Kalisto. It was like a swing and Kinshasa combo. So it was kind of unfortunate because they didn't play on it afterwards. They sort of just like cut away from it and just carried on with the pre-show. So maybe something will happen on the SmackDown with it. But I think, unfortunately, the last thing they need to do is split tag teams up, because that's literally all they've been doing for the past few months, to the point there is literally about 5 left. And they're pretty much all on this show. So, first match of the night, and I think this was the best match of the night, if I'm honest with you. It sort of almost gave me like Backlash 2018 vibes, whereas like the first match was the best thing, and then it sort of just kind of wasn't so great afterwards. It was Sami Zayn versus Jeff Hardy versus AJ Styles for the Intercontinental title. So basically, story going into this, AJ Styles had the IC title for a while. Jeff Hardy beat him for it. I think they had a rematch at some point, and then Sami Zayn came out, basically returned since leaving after WrestleMania, and basically made a claim that because he never lost the Intercontinental Championship, then Jeff Hardy isn't the actual Intercontinental Champion. So basically the solution is a ladder match for both the IC titles. A lot of back and forth in this match, both of them, like all three people just showing just how good they are. Jeff obviously having a few spots where it looks like he was trying to kill himself, or basically just cause serious pain to himself, and that's probably why he had like the drug addiction and stuff like that, because it will basically need painkillers for the crap he went through. There's a lot of unique moments in this which I was quite happy with. One brilliant moment that I loved was Sami Zayn was on the ladder, Jeff Hardy was to the side of him, and AJ Styles was coming in for a phenomenal forearm, I think, or something. And basically Sami Zayn, I think, kicks off Jeff Hardy, and as AJ Styles is in midair, he pushes the ladder into AJ. And it was like, Jesus Christ, it was like, I've never actually seen that before, so I was quite happy to see that. Jeff Hardy did this similar spot. They had this thing like with each entrant before the match, so it was like previous experiences in ladder matches. So it was like AJ Styles was Money in the Bank 2020. I'm sure they should have probably gone with 2018 because it was a much bigger moment. Sami Zayn was a Money in the Bank ladder match, which I think was 2019, or it could have been 2017. I think it was 2019. Might be the one that Braun was in. I think. I can't remember. And then Jeff Hardy's one was WrestleMania 33, where he did the Swanton onto Sheamus and Cesaro. I pretty much called before the match. I was like, Jeff Hardy's going to do something like that during this match. And basically, like 2/3 of the way through, he does. Like, he Swantons off a ladder onto Sami, who's on, like, basically laid across another ladder. There's us thinking that Sami's going to be out for the rest of the match. You get towards the end. Sami basically, they've all like recovered at some point, and Sami Zayn has basically grabbed handcuffs, and he gets one handcuff, and he puts it through the earlobe of Jeff Hardy, because basically Jeff's got those like loop earrings, so basically he's got a gap in his ears, and he basically puts the cuff through his ear, and then cuffs the others, like handcuffed to the ladder, and I was like, Jesus, like I thought it was weird enough with like when they did with Orton and the screwdriver, but this was like, because like the handcuff was like much bigger, is a bit like weirder to look at. It made it for a funny visual later on, and then he goes to handcuff AJ Styles, basically like handcuff him to the rope, and then AJ counters it. He goes for a suplex, and the best thing is, whilst he's gone for the suplex, Sami Zayn has cuffed himself to AJ Styles, so therefore AJ can't climb the ladder unless he's got Sami on his back. He ends up doing that, and Jeff Hardy gets up, and he literally is holding a ladder next to his ear like that, and he has to push it in the ring and roll him with it. And then he gets up, and I think he literally goes to like hit AJ like that. Whilst that is happening, Sami Zayn basically has the key in his mouth. I think he's had it in there for like 5 minutes or so. Basically takes it out, uncuffs himself, and then he grabs it and he handcuffs AJ Styles to the lower part of the ladder, so he can't climb all the way to the top. And whilst that's going on, he then climbs the ladder and takes both the Intercontinental titles down. So Sami Zayn is still the Intercontinental Champion, which I think is the correct move, because it's so they can sort of carry on from where they wanted to after WrestleMania when he retained against Daniel Bryan. Whoever his opponent is next, I don't know. They'll probably go with Jeff Hardy because he was the former Intercontinental Champion. But rematch clauses don't exist anymore, yet they always happen. Which I can talk about later on in a couple of matches. So yeah, like I said, that was probably the best match of the night. I could happily watch that one again. I did say to my friends that I was watching it with, I'm kind of worried that after that, the rest of the show's probably not going to be as good. The next match was Asuka versus Zelina Vega. This went on for like 7 minutes. I think like Zelina had a few moments in there. If I remember correctly, the ending is there's a pin sequence, and then Asuka catches her after a pin fall into the Asuka lock. Zelina then taps out that way. Sorry, I'm not doing so well. I was talking quite a lot in the group chat, and it's sort of come back to bite me in the arse. I think it's like with this one as well, the best moment afterwards is like for some reason, I think it's Charlie Caruso, but basically she starts like interviewing everyone after their matches. I think it only happens with the first 2 matches there. But basically this was like the second one, because she interviewed Sami Zayn, and he was like, look, I'm not the new Intercontinental Champion. I never lost it. So therefore I am still your Intercontinental Champion. With this one, she interviews Asuka. Asuka starts saying something in Japanese, I think. Or she does say it in English, but then I just lose track of what she was saying. I think she goes to show respect to Zelina Vega by shaking the hand. Zelina then does that to her, obviously like Japanese tradition. So Asuka goes to do it back, and then Zelina attacks her. So I'm sure this is setting up a rematch down the line, which I'm fine with. Maybe Zelina can put more time into sort of like preparing for Asuka, because I think it was literally like 2 weeks build. It was literally, she came out of nowhere after Asuka versus Mickie James, and literally just went, I won't challenge you for the title, and then slapped her, and then that was the build. So I'm intrigued to see what they do afterwards. I felt like with this pay-per-view, half the matches was going to be something was going to happen after the match. So, for example, I thought with the SmackDown Tag Titles match, I thought that like Lucha House Party were going to split up. I thought after well, I'll get to it later on. So the next match, this is the one where I was talking about that whole rematch clause being a thing. So it's Bobby Lashley defending his title against Apollo Crews, who I don't think Apollo did anything to earn it. It was just he was the last champion, so he's just challenging again. It's part of the storyline. Again, it was a very quick match. It's quite funny because it's got the same match length time as the next match, 8 minutes and 15 seconds. So MVP and Shelton Benjamin, I think, were basically hanging around outside. Ricochet was in Apollo's corner. No Cedric Alexander though. Don't know why that is. Maybe he's got something, or I thought he was going to show up later and be like the benefactor, but he wasn't. Bobby Lashley eventually gets Apollo in the Hurt Lock, which is basically the full Nelson submission, like the Master Lock. Apollo taps out, so very similar to the SummerSlam match. I think it was SummerSlam. Was the last one? Or was it Payback? I think it was the last one. I completely forgot because their pay-per-views are so infrequent nowadays. I think it was Payback. Like Payback was a week after SummerSlam. Next match, Street Profits, Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford beat Andrade and Angel Garza. I think this match was ended prematurely, unfortunately, because Angelo does a hot tag, and then whilst he's doing his moves, what normally gets kicked out of, and then he prepares the next bit. Andrade clearly kicks out, but the ref counts 3 and basically rings the bell. Very similar to the 8-man tag, which I think was, at the time, I think it was Ricochet, Apollo, and the Viking Raiders versus the Hurt Business, and Cedric did a Michinoku driver, and basically Ricochet kicked out at 2.5, but then they still counted 3. And the reason for that was Ivar did an outside dive and injured himself, so they sort of had to end it early. And unfortunately with this, Angel Garza got injured at some point, so that's why it happened. And I think we weren't paying attention at the time, so we got completely confused with the ending. We're literally like, have they just botched another finish? Like, because they did it with like Mickie James and Asuka. And then I was like, have they just seriously messed up? And then we see that Angel Garza's been injured. It's like, oh, it's another one of these. They've had to end the match early, but might as well just make it an actual finish. Like, we thought that Street Profits were going to retain anyway. Next match, Bayley basically comes out, does a promo where she's like, okay, open challenge, I guess. I'm opening the door for you. Anyone come out? And then she like pretends to close the door and goes, oh, never mind. And then, of all people, Asuka comes out. And it's Asuka versus Bayley for the SmackDown Women's title. And we're sort of thinking, they're not going to unify the titles, are they? Because that's the last thing we need. Like, there's enough women. It's women's tag teams that's the issue, not women's wrestlers. But essentially, we sort of figured out what would happen. Bayley basically loses by disqualification, so keeps the title. Then Sasha comes out of nowhere and hits her with a chair. And it's a bit of back and forth. Bayley attacks her in the head because she's basically got this big fuck off neck brace on. And you're literally like, why would you come out and attack her if you're still weakened? Because Bayley will just attack that, and she does. Basically, there's a bit where she goes to grab a chair. Sasha stops her by stepping on the chair, and then she goes to hit her, and then Bayley does the smart thing, which I kind of called anyway, and she actually rolls out the ring because she's literally doing this whole, the whole backing up in fear thing. But I'm like, you're right near the ropes, just roll under. So basically, that's what she does as Sasha swings the chair. So I guess Sasha sort of stands tall, but despite the fact she kind of took an equal beating to Bayley. I think they could have definitely held off on Sasha coming back. They could have given it a couple of months, but maybe they're just building up to Survivor Series. Maybe even Hell in a Cell. Who knows? But yeah, I feel like, unfortunately, with what happened with Nikki Cross, I thought in this match Alexa Bliss would get involved during the match and cost Nikki Cross the title, setting up their feud. But like I said, unfortunately, that didn't happen, so they had to sort of make do. Next match, Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton in an ambulance match. I thought it had a couple of alright moments. I was kind of hoping Randy would have won because this is basically his third title shot, and with the run he's been on this year, I'm surprised they didn't give him any sort of title run. Essentially, during the match, Drew McIntyre gets taken out by Randy Orton, only for Big Show to come out and then chokeslam Randy Orton through the table, and then Drew McIntyre sort of takes a bit of advantage. Then Randy Orton attacks Drew McIntyre, gets advantage of him. Drew McIntyre at one point Claymore kicks the door off the ambulance and hurts his knee. One thing that we started pointing out most of the way through the match, we don't get why this is a thing, but it's like, if your knee hurts, the solution to make it feel better is to not punch it multiple times, which seems to be I get when it's like they've got a dead leg and restore feeling, but it's literally like, oh, my leg hurts because I kicked a door, let me continue to punch it, it'll feel better. But anyway, there's a bit where they end up going backstage, and they basically get to some table with some food on it or something. And then Christian shows up, and he attacks Randy Orton, and then Drew McIntyre basically takes advantage and carries on. And then they get back to the ambulance. Randy Orton, I think he RKO's him on the bonnet of the car. They get to the top, and there's a bit where Drew McIntyre's hanging off the back. It's literally he's holding the back of it, but he's probably 2 feet off the floor. And basically, Randy Orton stomps on one hand and then stomps on the other, and then Drew McIntyre basically dramatically falls to the floor. But basically, the way they did it with the camera was you can't see the floor, so it looks like it's really high up. I jokingly went whilst we were watching it, and he's basically kicked one hand. I just gone, "Long live the king." So it's sort of in Lion King, and then basically stomps his other hand and he falls. If Matthew in Botchamania does that for his next Botchamania episode, I'm taking credit for it. Anyway, as he's doing that and Randy Orton's gloating, he turns around, sweet chin music, and then he gets pushed off the side by Shawn Michaels. So that's 3 people that have got involved on behalf of Drew McIntyre. Sort of makes sense story-wise because they're all the people that Randy Orton punted and took out. So it's fine for them to get revenge. I don't know if it makes Drew look strong, the fact that he's had to rely on Big Show, Christian, and Shawn Michaels to give him a helping hand against Randy Orton. But anyway, I think it eventually gets to a point where so Randy Orton RKO's him on the floor. So even after all that, Randy Orton's the first one to get up and make a big move. He goes to put him in the ambulance, closes one door very slowly, ponders for a while, and then grabs the other door. And as he goes to close it, Drew McIntyre stops him and then basically pokes his head out and pushes the door open and claymores him. And it's I sort of knew, just with how slow, I was yeah, Drew's going to survive this one. And then the fact that Drew was that close in without, actually being close, I was well, Drew's winning now. So basically, claymores him, throws him in the back. He goes, this is where it gets good as well. So he goes to close it and he hesitates for a second. He goes, no, I'm not done yet. And basically pulls Randy Orton's head, draping over the back of the ambulance. Takes God knows how many steps back. He's about 10 feet away. And then runs up and punts Randy Orton in the head. And then he closes the ambulance doors and Drew wins. So maybe Claymore and a punt for finishers for Drew. Who knows? It's good storytelling because obviously Randy Orton's been taking out these legends with a punt kick. And he used a punt kick on Drew 3 times to break his jaw. So it's sort of fitting that he used a punt on Orton for a change. Like I said, it's a really good match. I think I had a lot of fun with that ambulance match. So yeah, Drew retains. Maybe Orton down the line could maybe win a title. Don't know. Who knows? And then to top it off, the referee basically goes to the front of the ambulance, which has basically been proven for ages that no one was driving it anyway. And he goes, "Oh, you can drive, by the way. Well, you can drive it." And then it turns out Ric Flair's sat in the front. He goes, "I'm going to go over the speed limit, baby. Woo!" And then drives off in the ambulance. And then the final match, Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso for the Universal Championship. This went 22 minutes and 55 seconds. There's a couple of back and forth moments. It's mostly Roman dominating. Jey Uso gets a couple of moments in. There's a couple of moments where it's if there was a crowd there, they would be invested in the moment. Sort of like Brock at Survivor Series, like Brock versus AJ Styles, Brock versus Daniel Bryan, Brock versus Rey Mysterio. It's who's going to win, but there's that half a minute, 30 to 60 seconds, where something happens for the other guy, and you're like, they could actually beat him here. They could actually do it. And basically, there's a bit where Jey Uso basically super kicks Roman and frog, basically does a frog splash on him, or Uso splash, and that would be the bit where if there was a crowd, they would be doing the really loud 1, 2, hoping 3 chants. Eventually Roman spears him, goes to pick him up, and basically tells him, admit I'm a tribal chief, admit I'm the tribal chief. This is where the amazing storytelling comes in. And Jay's no. So basically picks him up, spears him again. He goes, call me the tribal chief. Call me the tribal chief. Basically demanding he does. And Jay's just not today. I'm not calling you it today. So then he spears him again, starts punching him. Charles Robinson basically questions what he's doing, the referee. And he goes through and he goes, you stand there, you shut your mouth, you let me do what I do. Basically goes back to him, starts punching him. Jimmy Uso then comes out, literally with a towel. He's about to throw it in. And Roman's do it, go on, do it, because he's not winning. You might as well just do it. Jay's basically convincing Jimmy, he's don't do it. It's don't throw the towel in for me, I can do this. And after about 2 minutes of Jimmy Uso going back and forth about it, he doesn't throw it in. And Roman goes, fine. Literally pulls him to the middle of the ring, continues to just punch the shit out of Jay for so long. And then Jimmy throws the towel in. I would have been annoyed that it ended in that way. But I think it just shows just how brutal Roman really is, especially as a heel. It's definitely the best run he's going to have. Especially after the 4 or 5 years of them just constantly shoving him down our throats, being this is the guy you want to cheer. This time he'll be booed genuinely rather than ironically. And the best part is basically as he's celebrating with the title, Jimmy Uso literally goes, you're the tribal chief, alright? Is that what you want to hear? You're the tribal chief, just leave him alone. So maybe down the line we'll get Jimmy Uso versus Roman. It makes me very excited to see what happens on SmackDown now. I'll go over my predictions, what I had. So essentially I got them all right, apart from Drew versus Orton. I thought Orton was going to win the title because of third time's a charm. Apparently not. So I had Roman Reigns to win. I had Bayley to retain the title, which I guess in a way she did. I had Street Profits to win. I had Bobby Lashley to win. I had Asuka to win. I had Sami Zayn to win. I had Cesaro and Shinsuke to win. I did originally have Shayna and Nia to retain the tag titles, but who knows. I'd say it was a mostly solid pay-per-view. I think, like I said, with Backlash, it was the opener was so good that the rest of the first half was a bit lackluster. You can sort of tell because literally those 4 matches were less than 10 minutes. And it was literally you could tell what matches they cared about the most. The Triple Threat IC title and both world titles, because they all went over 20 minutes. And like I said, Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton had some really good moments in it. Roman versus Jay was great for the storytelling. It probably had the best build going into it, so I was definitely excited for that one. And I'm very intrigued to see where they go next with it. It's nice to see Roman's literally doesn't matter if you're a member of the family, he will literally just beat the crap out of you until you give him and tell him he's the better man. So yeah, like I said, I'm very excited to see what happens on SmackDown. So that's pretty much my reaction to the pay-per-view, I guess. Mostly solid pay-per-view, a good start, a good end. The middle you can skip, to be honest. Nothing really of value happens in the middle part. Like, I'll be honest, like, the US title match and the Raw tag title match, you can literally just tune into Raw and you'll probably see the same thing. I think, if I remember correctly, we sort of predicted that with... Who we were going with? We were originally going to think that they were going to have a rematch of the Raw tag titles tomorrow. Like, if Angel Garza's fine, which I don't think... Like, I think we looked at it, I think he's done something to his quad, so I don't think he'll be fine. We're possibly thinking that Andrade might now get a singles push. Like, now that Angel Garza's going to be out of the way for a bit, maybe he could be next to challenge Drew McIntyre. We're kind of hoping they bring up their NXT days. Andrade can say, hey, do you remember the last time we fought each other for a championship? I beat you to become an NXT champion. I guarantee I'll beat you to become WWE champion, so they can set that up. Sami Zayn, like I said, I think Jeff Hardy will challenge him next. I think Lucha House Party are going to eventually split up. I don't know who will challenge Cesaro and Shinsuke next. I think they'll skip the next pay-per-view, to be honest, and then they'll focus on Survivor Series. Asuka, probably Zelina Vega again. Bobby Lashley, maybe Ricochet, I guess, if they continue this feud. Again, no appearance by Retribution, which was probably a good thing. We were kind of expecting it during the ambulance match. Like, there's a couple of times they did certain camera cuts and we're like, oh, Retribution showed up, and then they just didn't. So yeah, Retribution, despite the fact they're supposed to be like, oh, we're going to damage WWE and stuff, they're very nice to be just set to Mondays. And it's like, yeah. They're also contracted to Mondays, so apparently causing violence and basically damages to property gets you contracts on WWE. Who knew? Like I say, Roman Reigns, probably Jimmy Uso next. I don't know. I'm very excited to see where they go next with it. For Bayley, I think they're building up to Sasha for maybe Hell in a Cell. I think Nikki Cross will get a title shot on SmackDown. Like, once she comes back, they'll kind of try and do what they did at Clash of Champions, but who knows? God, I'm getting tired now. It's 5 to 6. So I'm going to end the video here. Thank you very much for watching this reaction video. It wasn't too great. It was literally just more a review and everything. But like I said, I thought it was a mostly alright pay-per-view. A good start, a good end. Like 3 title matches to watch, the IC title and both the world titles. The middle you can just skip over, to be honest with you. Nothing, like I said, nothing of note happens. But that's my video for Clash of Champions 2020. I hope you enjoy, and I shall hopefully see you for the next one. I've got, after tomorrow, I've got my Premier League Week 3 reactions to do. So there's that. Basically, if you just watch the WWE stuff, I'm also doing, like, Premier League, like, weekly videos as well. It's a new thing I'm trying to do. Unfortunately, none of the streaming services that I normally use to stream games are working. So basically, Mixer's no longer a thing, so I can't use that. Twitch, the app doesn't work for shit on the Xbox, and I'm not paying whatever money just to get some other streaming software to then connect it to like computer to then do this, just to get it to work. And also, I think with my upload issues, it sort of will be a pain with a 2-hour video, because it will be like, you know, it would take so long and I'd have to sit with like no internet for like 4 hours or so. Yeah, like I said, that's my Clash of Champions review. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall hopefully see you in the next one.